Colorism is discrimination, in which human beings are accorded differing social treatment based on skin color. The term is generally used for the phenomenon of people discriminating within their own ethnic groups. The term refers to when lighter skin tones are preferred and darker skin is considered less desirable, or darker skin tones are preferred and lighter skin is considered less desirable. Colorism in the United States is a practice that began in times of slavery due to white slave owners' assertion that any person black, African, or associated with blackness was inferior or lowly. Common practices of the time were to allow the slaves with the lighter complexion, more commonly the offspring of the slave masters and their slaves, to engage in less strenuous, usually domesticated duties, while the darker, more African-looking slaves participated in hard labor, which was more than likely outdoors. The brown paper bag test was a ritual once practiced by certain African American and Creole fraternities and sororities who discriminated against people who were too dark. That is, these groups would not let anyone into the sorority or fraternity whose skin tone was darker than a paper lunch bag, in order to maintain a perception of standards. Spike Lee's film, School Days, satirized this practice at historically black colleges and universities. The brown paper bag test form of colorism is also believed to have been used in the application process to the historically black college Howard University. Along with the paper bag test, guidelines for acceptance among the lighter ranks included the comb test, which tested the coarseness of one's hair, and the flashlight test, which tested a person's profile to make sure their features measured up or were close enough to those of the Caucasian race. A major issue in American society has been the fact the majority of media outlets, television, movies, advertising, etc., choose to portray lighter-skinned people, because on average, that is the national preference. The light-to-dark hierarchy within the African American race is one that has existed since the time of slavery, but its problems and consequences are still very evident. Darker-skinned blacks are more likely to have negative relationships with the police, less likely to have higher education or income levels, and less likely to hold public office. Studies have shown that when measuring education and family income, there is a positive sloping curve as the skin of families gets lighter. This does not prove that darker-skinned people are discriminated against, but it provides insight as to why these statistics are recurring. Lighter-skinned people tend to have higher social standing, more positive networks, and more opportunities to succeed than those of a darker persuasion. Scientists believe this advantage is due to not only to ancestors' benefits, but also skin color, which coincides with the belief of colorism affecting people's lives from past to now. In criminal sentencing, medium to dark-skinned African Americans are likely to receive sentences 2.6 times longer than those of whites or light-skinned African Americans, and when a white victim is involved, those with more black features are likely to receive a much more severe punishment, reinforcing the idea that those of lighter complexion are of more value. Colorism is prevalent in the job application process as well. Research shows that a light-skinned African American male with a bachelor's degree and mediocre experience is more likely to be hired for a typical job than a dark-skinned man with a master's in business administration and past experience in the field. Colorism also adversely affects the relationships between African American men and women. Darker-skinned African Americans are less likely to get married. Colorism seems to be more evident when discussing the lives of African American women, seeing as though they have more to overcome with the more pronounced differences in the body type, facial features, and hair. The constant exposure to persons with white European traits in American media, such as advertising, movies, television, or even children's dolls, provides an explanation as to why this comparison to Caucasian-like traits is perpetuated. Black is beautiful is a cultural movement that began in the United States of America in the 1960s by African Americans, and aims to dispel the notion in many world cultures that black people's natural features such as skin color, facial features, and hair are inherently ugly. The movement also encouraged men and women to stop straightening their hair and attempting to lighten or bleach their skin. The prevailing idea in American culture, perpetuated by the media, was that black features are less attractive or desirable than white features. The idea that blackness was ugly was highly damaging to the psyche of African Americans,